to
HP AP Gov Student News.
My name is Alison Gradsky.
And I'm Karen Gu.
And we are your co-anchors. On today's agenda are Obama's current statement on same-sex marriage,
judicial reforms in New York State,
the sentencing and conviction of Oscar Pistorius,
the detainment of Jeff Fowl,
iCloud security breaches,
the death of Oscar de la Renta,
White House security breaches,
and an update on Ebola,
along with an update on hot new interest groups in Washington, D.C. We begin with the story of same-sex marriage, and we go to our correspondents, Millie Cohen and Laura Romansky, out in the field.
Notable gains have been made this month for those who support same-sex marriage.
It is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
On October 6th, the Supreme Court legalized marriage between same-sex individuals in 11 states, in addition to the current 19, for a total of 30.
14 days later, in a recent interview, President Obama proclaimed the following.
Ultimately, I think the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment does guarantee same-sex marriage in all 50 states.
Basically, the 14th Amendment guarantees all men the same rights, as long as they're American citizens. This is now commonly understood to extend to women as well.
Hey, Mill, I guess that means we can get married now.
See you at the altar.
Thanks, Millie and Laura.
Now we begin speaking about the New York State judicial reforms.
We asked, you answered.
Just as the wage gap has widened over the past few years, so has the justice gap. Low-income people should get good lawyers in order to have access to our justice system and receive the justice they deserve. How can we declare that we believe in equality under the law if most people are not granted equal access to the system?
In the legal sphere, New York State has agreed to institute reforms in its judicial system. Perhaps one of our most fundamental rights is the right to a jury and a fair trial, regardless of color, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and social status.
While those currently assigned to appear in court currently are assigned public defenders if they cannot afford one, the level of free public defense and effort is far from impeccable. Many individuals are required to plead guilty for misdemeanors and are precluded from appealing for a lesser sentence.
You need to, of course, examine someone's personal situation, their household, whether it's a single mom of 3 children who might need more time. Does it make any sense to jail her?
A closer look at this situation by the New York Civil Liberties has resulted in key reform. As of now, courts will be required to hire sufficient lawyers, investigators, and support staff to ensure that all poor criminal defendants have lawyers with the time and support necessary to vigorously represent the defendant.
And now Millie and Laura will keep you updated on the ongoing Oscar Pistorius trial story.
On October 21st, 2014, Oscar Pistorius, South African Paralympic star, was sentenced to 5 years in prison for the murder of his girlfriend, Reba Steenkamp. On Valentine's Day, the South African amputee sprinter shot Steenkamp 3 times through the couple's bathroom door. Pistorius claimed he didn't know it was her in the bathroom, and he shot at the door fearing an intruder in their home. After the preliminary trial, 8 months wait time, and finally the sentencing procedure that included aggravating and mitigating circumstances, Pistorius was finally sentenced by Judge Thakazile Masipa in South Africa. The athlete is expected to serve 10 months in prison and then wait out the rest of his sentence on house arrest due to his health condition and the inability of the prison to sustain his needs. Here to explain more about the Pistorius trial is everyone's favorite law teacher.
Hello, Alex Shell from HP AP Gov News. I'm here with Mr. Cuff, and we're going to talk about the Oscar Pistorius case. Hello.
Morning, Alex.
Can you tell us a little bit about the sentence and what it actually means? What is culpable homicide?
Culpable homicide was what Oscar was charged with, and it's a little different in South Africa than in America. Culpable homicide is probably most equated to voluntary manslaughter. And in the United States, voluntary manslaughter is kind of a middle-of-the-road homicide.
Do you think because of his unique health situation, Pistorius will actually serve 5 years or be released and be on house arrest for 10 months?
I think that being a double amputee is a sympathetic circumstance for Oscar Pistorius, but I'm not sure that that really outweighs the fact that he is a first-time offender. He had several people speak on his behalf. He has been somewhat of a celebrity that's been outspoken for several causes. So he does have some people on his side and in his corner. Of course, if you look at the aggravating side of the scale, certainly Ms. Steenkamp's family got up and spoke about how valuable she was to the community and what a loss she will be. So I think that he'll probably serve a majority of his sentence in prison, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he got out on house arrest.
Thank you, Mr. Cuff, for that interview.
In other news, American Jeffrey Fowl has finally been released from custody in North Korea. For the past 6 months, he has been detained by North Korean forces under accusation of propagating the Christian gospel in a country with its own well-established religious views. Supposedly, Fowl left his Bible in a restaurant bathroom.
Never leave your Bible anywhere.
But I would never leave my Bible anywhere anyway. I love my Bible.
I'm sure he did too. Authorities report that while Fowl was not initially arrested, his identity was discovered just as he was about to board the plane to return to America. Initially, Fowl, an Ohio resident, had entered the country with a tourist visa, but as expert on the North Korean government states, he was suspected of attempts of mass conversion to the Christian faith.
His family asserts that Fowl had no missionary intention. Fowl, however, has affirmed that he did, in fact, leave the Bible, written in both English and Korean, behind for someone to read.
Is this your Bible? I showed him the Bible. Yeah, so I got that.
For this crime of utmost severity, Fowler was sentenced to 6 months of hard labor.
The Democratic Republic of Korea has decided to release Fowl. The United States government was required to provide transportation to Mr. Fowl out of North Korea in a timely fashion, and it, in fact, did just so. Interestingly enough, the release was facilitated through the Swedish embassy, which acts as a protective power for the U.S. and North Korea, who we don't have diplomatic relations with.
We're happy to have him home.
Aren't we?
We are so happy, but probably not as sad as Kim Jong-un to let him go. And now back to Billy and Laura for a story about iCloud security.
Alright, now we must talk about something that concerns a large portion of our audience. While Apple has been receiving mixed reviews about the new lines of iPhones and iPads, does yours bend? No. Alright. A more important issue has been obscured. iCloud, a service provided by Apple that stores all data from photos and emails to documents, passwords, usernames, etc., in a virtual cloud, has been experiencing some security breaches.
The crisis currently is most severe in China, where, upon entering one's password into a cloud-based server, the user is automatically redirected to unauthorized sites. Known as man-in-the-middle attacks, the security infringements occur when data is sent to an Apple server, yet intercepted along the way. Though this takes milliseconds to complete, hackers are able to obtain practically everything about your life.
Not only that, but because of iCloud, we're all stuck with that new U2 album no one can get rid of. Seriously, thanks iCloud.
The situation makes us question the validity of Apple Pay, a technology recently developed to allow one to pay for items by swiping the iPhone device. No credit cards or cash is necessary. But is it really worth the hype? Do you think the same thing, or even worse, will happen? Will people lose hundreds of dollars? Let us know by submitting your responses and name to our survey on our Twitter account at HPAPGov. And it'll be featured in the next edition of HP Student News.
Be on the lookout, Apple users.
Ooh. Do I look good, Alice?
You look great, Karen.
Thanks.
One of the most famed designers of the 21st century passed away on October 20th. Oscar de la Renta, the Dominican high-end fashion designer, was diagnosed with cancer in 2006 and finally lost his fight this year. De la Renta is most famous for his designs for every single First Lady since Jacqueline Kennedy. Most recently, he designed the wedding dress for Miss Alam Alamuddin, the woman who famously stole the ever-elusive George Clooney's heart. He's very elusive, isn't he?
So elusive.
He worked for Balenciaga, Lanvin, Elizabeth Arden, Balmain, and finally for his own brand. Even though the fashion industry will miss De la Renta dearly, his designs are timeless and won't be forgotten.
It's over.
Roger that.
On October 22nd, the White House security was breached for the second time in 1 month. The man scaled the fence before he was tackled by the Secret Service, but the White House was put on lockdown for at least 2.5 hours. Previous breaches include a man literally walking through the front door, it was open, and a toddler squeezing through the gates in the fence.
Over. And now for an update on the Ebola outbreak in the United States and abroad.
The AP government class conducted an opinion poll on the level of concern of Ebola of students at HP. 47% were mildly concerned, while 31% plan on moving to Antarctica. And we should be concerned because in West Africa, their medical equipment is probably worse than this. Click here for an update on the new interest groups in Washington, D.C.
Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time on
HP AP Go student news.
Wee wee